don't you love when they buff something that you kind of already broke? This build that I'm working on is a Flay Rupture build, emphasis on the Rupture. You are going to go around and rupture quite a few of your foes uh, to keep your cooldowns down. You're able to really just jump through, in, out, all that fun stuff. And stay alive via Iron Skin, because as you'll see later, none of my resistances are maxed. My armor's not even maxed. It's still a work in progress, but good build nonetheless. This pushes up to 119 currently, and this is before the update of 1.4.3. So it's, you know, able to handle quite a bit for not being entirely maxed out. And as we move on to this next room over here, you're about to see my favorite little group right here. It's really kind of my least favorite. Snakes and lunatics. Not a great combo. But again, this build handles them pretty well. Because all I do is rupture and then evade to break the animation. And if I don't kill him, I just turn around and try again. Get to the boss. Very simple. All you're going to do is, oh, well, it's a fun boss. Chains, rupture, get your attack speed up, rupture again. Boss dead. Now, let's cover some of the items real quick. As you can see, my armor is not maxed out. My resistance is kind of trashed, but I was surviving at a decent pace. I just had to make sure I popped my iron skin. That is going to be thanks to your one piece of non-unique armor. This right here, your iron skin grants you unstoppable and 35% damage reduction. It's going to keep you alive for a good amount of time. When you get these pants, though, I do highly recommend you prioritize that Flay. It's going to expand your damage by quite a bit. Everybody already knows the Harlequin Crest. I don't think I have to leave much to it. That cooldown reduction, though, is a pretty big thing. Then you're going to have your Rage of Hargoth. This is why my cooldowns are always available to me. As long as I pop my Rupture and they hit that group of people, I'm going to apply Bleeding to a bunch of people at once, which each one's a 30%, 6% chance to reduce my cooldown by 1 second, and my cooldown reduction has reduced it down to about 4 seconds. Then we're going to be looking at Edge Masters, because as you saw, my Fury is almost always up. Hectic, just in case I miss a rupture. I need to be able to get my cooldowns back up. Moonrise, because you want that flay damage way up for the bosses in particular. And then Rapid, because the more you hit, the more you're going to apply that bleed, the higher you hit, or chance of landing a crit, which is going to go big with the aspects we're going. All right, let's get into the big stuff though. We have Remladani's Magnum Opus over here. It's one of those things I just thought, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. I mean, I'm using my one-handed weapons all the time, and because I am for both Rupture and for Flay, that ability down there that says skills using this weapon deal 0.4% increased damage per point of fury I have, well, it makes a big difference on Rupture and Flay. Other big help for this build has been Ancient's Oath. That 58% increased damage that they take from me has also stacked well multiplicatively. Plus, the damage while berserking kind of covers that stat, so I don't need to look for it in other areas nearly as much. The Loop of the Elements, I mean, you're looking at the very basic ability on it. I mean, everybody runs elements, but it does apply a multiplicative, and physical is in that rotation, so it does help me in many situations. Bold Chieftain's Necklace I've been consistently considering replacing because Rage of Hargoth already does all the stuff I need it to do. So that might become aspect of Berserk Ripping, but it also has been good as Wanton Rupture. Chain of Adaptability because you want to apply as much bleed damage through Flay as possible, and this will do just that because you're always at maximum resource. Next, we're going to talk about the skills, but first off, we got to start off with your expertise. We're looking at the expertise right here. we're going to want that two-handed sword or expertise because everything you want to do is you just always want to be applying bleeding in any way, shape, or form. You got Flay, as you want to stack that up as much as you possibly can. You want to go with the Battle Flay so that way it increases the amount of bleeding damage you're always applying. You're going to then want Imposing Presence for your survivability. The more life, the more your Rupture is going to do because Rupture always overpowers. We'll get into that later. Martial Vigor. I mean, you just don't want to be taking too much damage from the bosses. Uh, Iron Skin. This right here has saved me so many times. I do highly recommend it. I don't even use my potions most of the time because Iron Skin does the healing for me. Challenging Shout will increase your maximum life once you go for this little bonus right here. War Cry to increase your damage and add a little bit of a berserking timer on there. It's actually your largest berserking timer you're going to apply. Uh, gives you a little bit of Fortify as well, but really you're there for that berserking damage. Since you already have some form of shouts, you want to pop that guttural yell, but really it comes down to Steel Grasp. The higher the rank, the lower the cooldown. As you can see, mine's pretty low. Uh, it, and it gives you berserking as well. Flay for obvious reasons, but then you're going to want the Warrior's Rupture, which increases your attack speed so that Flay can go a lot further. And then biggest thing is your Gushing Wounds, because crits will basically, you'll crit bleed on a crit chance that you've been stacking this entire time. All right, first things first, we all know that basic board. You're going to want to start off with Exploit, and we do like the fact that Exploit is going to give you some vulnerable damage off the bat, but in all actuality, the reason you want this piece in the board is you want to use it for something that is going to scale much later in this board. Uh, Following that, you're going to go to the Warbringer board filled with the Ire slot because you need some damage while berserking, which is going to scale with another piece of the board as you progress, followed by the Carnage board with Ambidextrous because you're going to be using your two one-handed weapons. So you want to increase that damage as you can, and well, you kind of want to get that damage reduction from close as well as damage while berserking while you can, because that is again going to scale with something later on. After you go through that board, you're going to hit the Blood Rage board. You're going to want to add Blood Feeder into there. This is going to increase the amount of damage you deal to bleeding enemies, and since you're always making enemies bleed, it's a pretty nice little buff there. Next on up, you're going to be looking at the Bone Breaker board. This board right here is going to apply some lovely damage reductions while you're healthy, even though you're really not healthy until your bubble is up. But that combined with your bubble definitely helps a lot as far as your survivability goes. Really, what you're looking for though is that Wrath glyph in there, so that way you can increase your critical strike damage to combine with your bleed crits. After that, you're going to be looking at your Decimator board with a Disembowel in there, which is going to increase your damage over time, or your bleeding damage. It is a lovely piece to have and kind of crucial for a bleed based build. And then lastly, you're going to go into Hemorrhage. This is what I mean by it's going to scale later in the board. That vulnerable damage, it's 15% of your vulnerable damage. Mine isn't even that high, but because of that extra multiplicative in there, it definitely makes a nice leap. It's one more piece to note in here. I believe it's up here. It is. Blood Rage is going to be the one that you're looking for damage with Berserking as well. It's going to give you a multiplicative, but this one caps out at 30, whereas Hemorrhage does not cap out. It'll just keep going. Something to note, so that way, if you can get your damage to Berserking to 300, you're set, you're golden, you don't have to worry anymore. Then you just focus everything into vulnerable, crit damage, and crit